There was a large amount of media coverage when this study was published, indicating that the main areas of serotonin research do not actually provide consistent evidence between the association between low serotonin levels and depression. Therefore, it's unlikely that SSRIs improve symptoms of depression by increasing serotonin levels.
As mentioned in that video, this study caught a lot of traction, indicating that there does not appear to be evidence that low serotonin is actually linked to depression. And they also highlight the fact that some evidence was consistent with the possibility that long-term antidepressant use actually reduces serotonin concentrations. Another fascinating finding is that it does appear that acute SSRI treatment, meaning the initial implementation of SSRIs, can actually exacerbate symptoms and worsen ruminative processes. But it is actually the chronic treatment of SSRIs that can reverse ruminative processes and reduce symptoms. This is quite fascinating as it indicates that initially when SSRIs actually increase serotonin levels, they can exacerbate symptoms. But the chronic administration of SSRIs actually reduces serotonin and the sensitivity of serotonin receptors, which actually correlates with the reduction in symptoms. And this is very striking as it's implicating that serotonin may actually not be the molecule we're looking for. And unfortunately, all of the medications and supplements that are targeted to increase serotonin may not actually have a strong scientific and efficacious basis. And in fact, it is that long-term reduction in serotonin that is the greatest predictor of SSRI treatment outcome and positive potential. Serotonin is actually quite fascinating. It appears to have a mood stabilizing effects where it inhibits both positive and negative emotions, which can lead to a state of what some refer to as apathy or a blunting of all emotions. Elevated serotonin is actually implicated in a lot of not so happy conditions such as agitation, restlessness, sickness and starvation-induced depression, and melancholia. And elevated serotonin during exercise is actually one of the driving factors behind fatigue, indicating that elevated serotonin levels may actually be implicated in a myriad of adverse mental and physical states. And when it comes to SSRIs, in the short term, in many people, they actually increase symptoms of depression, fatigue, and many of the symptoms associated with elevated serotonin. But in the long term, there are compensatory decreases in serotonin, glutamate, and increases in things like BDNF and calcium calmodulin within the brain, and alterations in gene expression, and that is when they actually begin to exert positive effects within the brain and body. And I think I just want to drive home the idea that oftentimes it is those with the greatest reduction in serotonin in the long run that actually see the greatest efficacy for SSRI treatment. Therefore, the idea that we want to chronically and constantly raise our serotonin levels using things like supplements as natural alternatives to SSRIs may actually be doing the opposite of what SSRIs do in the long term by decreasing brain serotonin levels, which is when they actually have their greatest efficacy. By all means, more and more research needs to come out about the role of serotonin in mood disorders and the implications of elevated serotonin also being linked to depression. But the abundance of data we currently have actually indicates that raising serotonin is implicated in numerous adverse mental and physiological states, and SSRIs may in fact work via a long-term reduction in serotonin levels, which is contrary to the idea that serotonin is the happiness hormone.